Trapped by fear. I'm in a box. I've got no place to go. If I follow my mind, I know I'll slaughter my own. Help me, I'm the prisoner. Won't you hear my plea? I need somebody, yeah, to listen to me. I beg you, brothers and sisters, I'm counting on you, yeah. Black babies in the womb, shackled and bound, chained by the caveman who keeps beauty down, smacked on the ass when they're squalling and wet, and to a spineless man who never forgets, never forgets that he's a prisoner. Can't you hear my plea? 'Cause I Greetings, peace, and love. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the N.E.P.P.C podcast. I'm Brother Frank, and I'm with former political prisoner
Abdul Haq Islam.
For those who are tuning in for the first time, please share with 10 people, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, let other people know about what we're doing. We commit ourselves to doing this work because we understand the importance of the work. As you just seen, in our introduction, we put out some information about our brother, our comrade, who's currently incarcerated, a political prisoner, freedom fighter, Kamal Siddiqui. He's been denied his medication. So please make that phone call. Make that phone call. Please share this with as many people as possible because, every time we ignore an emergency situation like that, we continue to put our freedom fighter, our political prisoner, live in danger. So please share that with at least 10 people. Today's episode, we're focusing on the work of Mumia Jamal. Yes, it's very important that we understand the importance and significance of this particular work. He wrote his recent writings along with his other writings always dealt with the crisis at hand, the situation that needed to be addressed and why it needed to be addressed, because he was a stand-up brother, a brother who was very serious about freedom and understood what came and is, right, thank you for correcting me, is a brother who's very serious about reading. In the first of the 3 books on Murder Incorporated, it says historians who are apologists for the past are rewarded and promoted. Truth tellers are marginalized. And I think that talks about all the books in general. A truth teller is going to be marginalized, demonized, are going to be looked upon as conspiracy theorists, as people that, yes, they saying things, but those things are not necessarily true. And it's something that you just want to engage in to just think as something as spending time to being entertained, right? But there's a reason why these historical facts are being presented in these volumes of book, because people need to know the truth about the past, and people need to understand that history of resistance is not just marginalized to the 60s, right? There was histories of resistance before the 60s. You had slave revolts happening. You had a number of battles and wars that occurred in the United States where you have people of African descent, and people who understood that their position in society was at hand by what they were deciding to do, meaning what side was they going to choose to be on. And I think that these volumes need to be studied. This is Black History Month, and it's very important that we're reminded of the importance of studying our history and allowing us to tell our own story. Make sure when we study our history, we look at historians like Dr. Ben and John Henry Clark, Ivan Van Sertima, people like Noam Chomsky, and also Howard Zinn that really dug deep into what America's history truly is. And our African historian teachers who understood the importance of us having an identity, because Arthur Schomburg was taught he taught John Henry Clark, because John Henry Clark grew up thinking that was being told rather that his people, he was of a people who didn't have a history. So that just fueled his curiosity, and once he started to satisfy that curiosity, then he started to share the knowledge with others. So brother Abdul Haq Islam, what's your point? What's your view on the importance of the work of Mumia Abu Jamal?
Mumia made a very, very great contribution. Right now, I'm reading his book, Murder Incorporated. It talks about manifest destiny and the many genocides that the Americans and other white supremacists did around the world. A very, very monstrous history that is hidden from us that we must come to know so that we can act in a sane and rational way and to produce that inner drive in us to do the work that is necessary, to make positive, productive things happen, things that benefit us, things that serve our interests, things that contribute to our well-being. If we just depend on the enemy to tell us what happened, you understand? We'll be way off in West Bubble somewhere. You understand? With no idea of what is real. I refer to Steve Biko, who said, who was a political prisoner, who said that the mind of the oppressed is the greatest weapon in the hand of the oppressor. You know, it is a very, very grievous thing when the enemy can gain control of the minds, and um, the past is an indication of what the present is. We look at the past and we can see elements of the past happening right now, strategies of the past being continued. Right now in Florida, a politician named DeSantos has outlawed the teaching of Black history, has outlawed Black studies, and fired a professor who teaches Black studies. This is something that must create an outrage in us. The enemy, through controlling our education, means to literally control us, to make us his possession forever, to make our minds his mind. And the main weapon that he uses, one of the main weapons that he uses to do that is education, and this being Black History Month, this is a month that has great meaning to our people, and that meaning is multiplied many, many times when we see that the attack, one of the greatest aspects of the attack is on our history, to tell us a lie about history, So we must, take control of the narrative. This fake history that they try to teach us is something which must produce a tremendous resistance among our people. Millions of our people need to look at this and to respond and to rebel, to create the essence of a revolutionary war against this effort to lie to us about history, to lie to us about the monstrous things that have happened in history, to lie to us about our glorious past. You understand? Uh, one of the most horrendous things that happened in this history was the doctrine of discovery, the doctrine, you understand, in which white supremacists said that they must satisfy and appease their creator by going around the world and robbing and taking people's lands and everything in, taking their possessions and completely dominating, And in this process, they have murdered millions of people. They're going into nations all around the world and completely wiped out people with genocides, you understand? And this is the reality. When we get this watered down, sugar coated uh, presentation of genocide, we can become lazy. We can get into a do nothing mood, into a dead state of mind. You understand? Well, we don't do no work. You understand? But when we understand the realities of history, you understand? The cruelties, the very, very severe tortures, you understand? The propaganda that came from the enemy that said that we are less than human, that we are not human beings, you understand? That we have no right to fight for our rights, you understand? This is what was propagated, and we must look at this, you understand, to produce, a mighty, mighty movement in our people. You understand? Let masses of our people know, what the enemy, is putting down, what he's putting out there. I want to read something from Mumia Jamal in his book, Murder Incorporated. A couple of things. First, I want to read something that demonstrates the maniac, murderous mentality of
Teach, brother, teach.
as Roosevelt was taking the world into World War One. You understand? World War One and World War Two was a falling out among thieves. So it was necessary for them to promulgate this genocidal insanity. You understand? In the West, to go to go into the world and kill and kill and kill and kill. You understand? Like I said, there was a falling out among thieves over colonies. All right. So let me see. Let me get my little light here. So
While you're in preparation for that, I'll just continue to speak and engage in this important dialogue, because when we study history, it allows us to understand what we're going through right now, and the fact that we need to teach our children, which is our future, so they can deal with this society appropriately. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. This is something talks about what Roosevelt said. You understand? To prepare the nation to go into an insane bloodbath, murdering and killing folks. You understand? For wealth. The president wouldn't have longed to discover what kind of man Theodore, and when TR began blustering, the press was there to create headlines, fan the flames of war, and sell papers, lots of them. Mere months into the appointment as Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Roosevelt, during a speech in Naval College, began the war with words of war. Reporters that counted the word war from TR's lips more than 60 times, but rather than be appalled to at least a spectacle, the press greeted the speech with strong praise. They praised, you understand, this call to violence, to killing and murdering, you understand, to expand the empire. The working post exalted uh, Theodore Roosevelt, you have found your place at last. The Baltimore Sun pronounced Roosevelt's speech as manly, patriotic, intelligent, and convincing. Roosevelt must have been buoyed up by such reports, but they fit perfectly into his Aryan worldview of absolute manifest destiny and American exceptionalism, which also translated war into an exercise of male virtues. Years later, as you may know, George Carlin called America's big sexual organ, foreign policy. In his naval post for less than 6 months, Roosevelt was taking every opportunity, such as when his boss was out of town, on brief the president on the necessity for war, McKinley, actually the press, moved, acquiesced. So, that is one example of the propaganda going out there, glorifying killing, armed robbery, transnational armed robbery, which helped to lead the war into World War I. Here's something else Mumia wrote. You understand? Talks about the hypocrisy of these people lip service trying to pretend that they Democrat, fair and objective and all that type of stuff. It's called it says lip service. This again is from his book Murder Incorporated. Lip service. From 1880 further, John Swinson, formerly head of the New York Times editorial staff, speaking to his brethren, continues. There's no such thing at this date of the world history in America as an independent press. You know it, and I know it. There's not one of you who have to write your honest opinions. And if you did, you know beforehand that it would never appear in press. Okay, Mumia goes on to say, post-World War I, America press, for the sake of bigger, more professional owners and staff, began to give service to notions of objectivity and fairness. In point of fact, these are rather recent innovations to better sell ads to commercial entities and therefore of hawking the consumer goods to broad markets. Thus, we should remember that this new innovation of objectivity and fairness was meant to increase circulation of commercial products to standardized staffs and editorials, to a product more amenable to a growing social sector, an educated working and managerial class. So, these ideas of fairness and goodness and virtue, you understand, that became the mode for selling this fake democracy. As Mumia explains, this was motivated, you understand, by the objective of selling products, of selling, of enriching capitalists. So we get these fairy tales about how good the enemy is, how fair the enemy will be to us, you understand, in order to get us to make them rich, to take our money and to give to the enemy, to make the enemy powerful. You know, it is very, very incumbent upon us, to let folks know, what really went down in in our history. The many, many genocides, the cruelties that happened. In many places, before the hypocrisy became the mode, white folks white supremacists just blatantly said that they were superior to everybody else on earth and that they had a right, to go into people's lands and subjugate them, you understand, to oppress them, to use violence on them, you understand, with the objective and the intention, you understand, the evil intention of enriching themselves, claiming it was for God, but the God of materialism is mammon. That's the God that did that. That was the God that was inspiring them, and you might even say it was a devil, and they like to claim that they were trying to appease their creator, and in that effort, they created this doctrine, the doctrine of discovery, which said they had a divine right to commit armed robbery inside. Ain't that a blessing?
And that would be under the idea of manifest destiny, right?
Yes, sir. Manifest destiny.
And I think that these ideas or this history needs to really be discussed because now people are going to understand that they need to rely on the past and in terms of dealing with the present time, right? Mm-hmm. We got injustices like Tyree Nichols, which wasn't the first police brutality, or nor the last.
Keep the thought, but that produced by some cops that hated their own race. You understand? Yes. And we're an example of that miseducation.
Absolutely. And that's why we have to struggle for correct ideas. We have to struggle for correct education. And that's why Mumia's books are so important. Right? If you don't have this book, you need to read this book. I have it. This is my copy, right? And I need to read the whole book. And I understand because once I read the whole book, then I deal with life differently regarding of how do I relate to oppression? How do I relate to our current situation? So when something like Tyree Nichols happens, I can understand that what did they do in the past? We know that the Black Panther Party, they organized in response to police brutality. We know that those events took place because people wanted our situation at the time to change. And currently, we want our situation to change. And what do we do? What are we involved in? We have to stand up. We have to take a position. And that leads us to dealing with political prisoners, right? Because those are freedom fighters. Those are people like me and you who were involved, who were determined to change the current situation, who understood that they had to look at what was happening now and compare it to what happened to the past. And then they would look at how things came into being. Then they understand what they need to do and they get involved. They take a position. They don't just simply read a book to discuss an idea and talk about what's happening and sound intelligent by having knowledge of something. They say that, okay, to know something is one thing, to do something is another. The Panthers formula for change, for real change, a theory practice theory. So we study this book and we study the tactic that we use. Then we start to talk about what we need to do. And I think that that's important because this Black History Month. Let's study some real important history books. Let's go to our library, right? Let's go to our library and tell them we want this book in our library. We want it accessible to our youth, and we want that in our schools. I was in the library in Merrick in Queens, and I came across this journal, Black Resistance. Queens Public Library celebrates Black History Month, and big shout out to the person who put this together. In fact, anybody has any contact with the person or the people who put this journal together, please contact me at 347-679-3936. I love to go do a presentation. You can't talk about Black resistance without talking about political prisoners. You can't talk about no history of our resistance in the United States without talking about political prisoners. So anybody knows who put this very important journal together for Black History Month in Queens Public Library, let me know because I love to talk to them. And shout out to the Nelson Mandela School for Social Justice. Me and Brother Shep got an opportunity to speak. Brother Abe, we appreciate you making that connection and you allowed us to speak on that platform. Brother Shep talked about the Black Panther Party history and the training that was given to them to dealing with police brutality. I talked about political prisoners and told them that their school was named after political prisoner and therefore they had the responsibility to know about political prisoners because don't expect for people not to be penalized before their ideas. As I said in the introduction, those people who spoke about history and actually on how history really is, their ideas and their books and their doctrines, their documentation got marginalized. And we got to understand our voice will be marginalized too once we start speaking about organizing for real change. But because those who are in power want the system to change, doesn't want the system to change. They want to keep the status quo. They want to keep the arrangement of things. But we have the responsibility to change that, not only for ourselves and our elders who sacrifice so much, but for our children, our future. See, our children, they love us. They looking for us for answers, and we got to provide them with answers. And we can't be afraid to tell them the truth. Yes, they're going to ask why and why and why, and they're going to test our patience. But we once were unconscious, and we once needed somebody to be patient with us to tell us the truth about what was going on. And from that, we made a decision about what we're going to do and how we relate to being told the truth. Brother Abdul Haq Islam, you were incarcerated. You were a political prisoner. You understood the sacrifices that you had to make. What were the importance of learning history in its proper content to you while you were incarcerated and how it led you to stand up for your people?
Well, I understood that I had adopted a foreign culture. You understand? A culture of criminals. You understand? And being captured and incarcerated. I refused to stay in that mode of thought. You understand? In fact, I refused to be a slave to the system. Every penitentiary I went in, the first question I asked is, what job can I get where all I got to do all day is sweep up something about the size of a postage stamp. And the rest of the day I spent studying. So I studied, and I studied the nature of this system. I studied the atrocities committed by this system, you understand, and the fire in me to continue studying and to spread information, you understand, to give out information that would inspire people, to stand up and to form structures, you understand, to make things happen for our people. And I just wanted to say, conceptually, to connect this whole discussion to political prisoners is that when our people understand, what we're talking about today in this presentation, they will support our political prisoners, when they know the um, the injustices that our people went through and the degree of the injustice, you understand? And when they study their history, which will create a love of them for who they are, you understand, is natural for them to support political prisoners, those who stood up for those values, you understand? Those who fought, you understand, and put their whole lives on the line for the people. You know, it's a natural thing for them to do that, you know. So we're saying that this atrocity that's happening right now in education, that millions of our people need to know about that. You understand? And to become completely outraged by that. You understand? That there would be such a tremendous uh, move in many states in this union right now to lie to us about history, you know, to make us lame, you understand, in that aspect, to create a do nothing, lay down in the casket type of culture. You understand? Our people, with understanding the role and the importance of resistance, you know, will put together those structures which can put out the information, you understand, which will motivate our people for justice. We understand the true history of what happened in America, you know, people who love themselves have no other choice but to do something, to make changes happen, to understand the power of the people. Where there's people, there's power, as Chairman Fred Hampton said. Where there's people, there is power, you know, and the power of falsehood versus truth, you understand, that creates, you understand, an urge in us to reach out to our loved ones, to our beloved community. You understand?
Yes, absolutely.
So we encourage people to share this podcast with 10 people. Also, this February 7th on Democracy Now! They talked about the discovery. February 7th, yesterday, on Law of the Land, WLIB. The sister Gloria Brown Marshall talked about this attack on our education. You understand? This attack in Florida and around the country, you understand, to dumb us down. You understand? To put stupid ideas in our head. You understand? And this is something that, you know, a freedom-loving people will stand up, you understand, like a mighty army, you understand, and spread the information. So we call on people to spread that information. Also, we say for this podcast, you know, donate $1, donate $1.
Yes, donate $1. And before we close out, I just want to say that there was a quote that I put up, and it was from Mumia, and Mumia talked about the only way you can truly be sane is to resist. Right? We look at the barbaric situation or the conditions that we were forced to be in, and we have to look at ourselves and ask ourselves, if I really truly want to be sane in this society, in this system, that I have to resist. And I thought that that's very important. We need to share that with our children and let our children know that whatever you are going through, whatever stressful situation you are going to, it is because of the way the system is constructed. And in order for you to get right, you have to resist, right? You have to challenge what they're telling you is healthy for you. You got to challenge what they're saying is correct. You have to challenge what they're saying that you can and cannot do. Because like when the attorney Ben Crump said you can't do nothing. That's insane. Yeah, that's insane. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be like, yo, there's always something you got to do. And history teaches us that something there's things that people always did. Excuse me. I just got
Right.
excited in what I needed to say.
I
But
know,
all right, brother. So that's it for this episode. You got any
that's it,
closing
brother.
remarks,
I'm
man?
just saying, on Saturday, insanity is living in a world of make believe, having a very, very false ideas about what's going on. It's like running around 24/7, like you just drank a fifth of Johnny Walker Red Label. So we saying through education and through the proper understanding of our history and the true meaning, you understand, that we can act with some sanity. Black power.
Black power.
Free them all.
Free them all. So now, from our word, Killer Mike.
To do this as well. And I have to give the credit to this idea, Miss Kathy Hughes of Radio 1. She's like, Michael, it is time that you guys organize a fund to set aside to help people who sacrifice for our freedom. Meaning, every time something happens, I hear this. Why don't the gang bangers jump up and do something for us? Why don't you kill them? You kill each other. And I say to myself, when is the last time you sent money to Assata Shakur? When is the last time you sent money to Matulu Shakur? When is the last time you sent money to Mumia Jamal or Larry Hoover or Jeff Ford or Leonard Peltier? When is the last time you have made it your business to send money to a revolutionary or a hoodlum that has helped us? And until we start to do that, how can we ask these young men to be warriors? Because if they do it in the name of the hood, at least the hood gonna honor their name always. At least the hood gonna make sure at least their children got something or their mama's house is looked after. As a community, if we're going to ask people to bungee jump for us with no cord, be prepared to take care of them when they get a life sentence. Be prepared to look after their families. See, I don't mind the work getting done, but let's take care of the workers. Let's stop asking more out of people than we would do for ourselves. So what I'd like to see, my dream thing, is to see 1 million people from the culture dedicate $10 a month. That's $10 million a month, $120 million a year toward taking care of civil rights leaders who have worked on our behalf and are elderly now and don't have to take care of themselves, like Rosa Parks, whose rent was paid by the owner of Little Caesars Pizza. We should have had a fund to make sure that she never had to worry about that again in her life. We should have a fund that makes sure money makes it to Assata Shakur, and Matulu Shakur has legal representation and food, and Leonard Peltier, who has diabetes in jail, can get insulin and taken care of. And until we start doing it, $10 a month is about what you pay on a couple fast food restaurant visits. So if 1 million of us do that for the rest of our life, look at how well we'll be taking care of the people that we're asking to sacrifice on our behalf.
I agree. And recently